Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland, and today we have another review for you. We're going to be reviewing these two Sam Maxwell custom Momo wheels. Sam made these for me a while ago, and I've been using them in a lot of the videos that I shoot. And I figured it was about time we put them through the Sim Racing Garage review. So let's get to it. Okay, let's look at the 27D wheel first, and then we'll look at the MOD30, and just do a quick overall look at the wheels and what's on them. 27D, means it's 270 millimeters across. You can get them in different sizes, of course. The yellow tape is something that I added to tell which direction my wheels are pointed. On the front of this, you'll see there's a carbon fiber plate that Sam actually came up with because I had this wheel mounted to a ECCI 7000 wheel, and the other holes I had drilled for that because it's a non-standard pattern for that hub, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I was just going to live with the holes because it's just a race car and I really didn't care. But Sam actually said he had an idea to make it look a lot better, and he certainly does, I think. He came up with a great idea there. Again, just another testament to what Sam can think about as far as making your existing wheel or a new wheel any way you want it, and really overcome little small problems that you come up with when you start designing your wheel. This wheel in particular has these kind of I call them marble buttons because they're kind of like about the size of marbles. But these buttons, when I first got this, I wasn't really expecting such a nice tactile feel to these buttons. It has a really strong return spring in these buttons. I've had button boxes before that had buttons that looked just like this, but man, they were nowhere near as far as hard to push and with a nice tactile, definitive click in it. You know you push that button when you push it. Even with gloves on, you know you can feel that click. And with the other ones, it was kind of vague. I guess maybe it's different. Manufacturers have different quality. This might be more expensive buttons than others, I don't know. Or maybe it's just a good batch, but they sure feel good. The dials down here, nice definitive clicks on those. So you always know that you've actually clicked it once. Unlike some dials that I've had before on button boxes or other things, that you just didn't have such a nice definitive click in it, and you had to watch the display or whatever you're changing to make sure you made your change. These also have a nice rubberized feel to them. If you're racing without gloves, you can feel that. Of course, with gloves you wouldn't be able to feel it, but it's still easier to grip them. This is the Sim Instruments display. This is a version 1.3, which actually did not have enough button allocation on the circuit board for that version of the Sim Instruments display, and Sam actually was able to overcome that and give me the number of buttons, including the shifters, that I needed, which is another great thing about Sam Maxwell. He can engineer just about anything you want. The plates on here are carbon fiber, and of course the shifters are carbon fiber. Very nice shifter mechanisms. They're very actually simple but very effective, and we'll look at those in detail in a little bit. This has the Q1R quick release on it. All my wheels do because I use that system. It's a very nice system, by the way. And we have a USB port here because we run a USB cable, which allows me to run this wheel on any system I want to just by changing the quick release or the attachment point. And that just gives you a lot of freedom. Even though there is a cord hanging down, it's just something that doesn't bother me a bit because I'm not locked into a proprietary wheel system when I use this type of USB plug. Anything else we want to say about this wheel? I guess well, yeah, we got this gar light in here, but you can't see it too well, but we're going to talk a lot about that gar light that he uses for his middle of, and actually the frame of, these electronic pods. All right, we'll go ahead and get the MOD30 out now and take a look at that one. And after we're done with that, we'll take the pods off of these wheels and take a closer look at what's inside and how they work. Okay, let's look at the MOD30. I use this for GT cars, some GT cars, and oval also. I don't do a whole lot of oval racing, but it's a nice wheel for that too. And we can see this is one of those, the ergonomic type one, that I'll talk about later as far as the knobs on it and all that stuff and how I use it. You can see this one looks a little different as far as the electronics pod. This has the knitter buttons. I really like the knitter buttons. They're very cool. You see them a little closer there. They got nice colors to them. They got a very light click to them, unlike those marble buttons that were on the 27D. These have a very light click to them. I actually like the click on the marble ones better, but I just like the knitters better because there's something about them. I just like the way they look. But I also like the fact that with these knitter buttons, they're easy to change the colors. If I want to change a way I'm using a button and I want to color code it to let me know that I've changed it or let me know what that button means instead of putting a bunch of labels on my wheel, I can actually just change the color. Like if I want to change this red one to, let's say, a green one or a white one or whatever I wanted to change it to, maybe even a yellow, it's a simple matter just taking it and pulling it off. So it just pulls off like that. It's got a little hole in there, just presses back on very easily. And I've got some extra ones here. You can see them all here. Oh, there's a bunch of them. All kinds of different colors. And I got those from Sam when I ordered the wheel and when he was building it to make sure that I had 2 of each color in case I wanted to move them around. So let's say I want to put another yellow one on. I actually have another yellow because of that. And I can just put it on there and you really just press it back on. And that's all you do. Now it's good to go. So I've just changed it to yellow. And that's one of the cool things about knitters. And also that they're smaller. I don't hit them as much as I do the big ones if I'm driving aggressively and my hand might slip. The dials themselves are the same ones that are on the 27D, which is a good thing because, again, like I said before, if you saw that part, very nice tactile feel there on those clicks. I really like that. And, of course, it has a rubbery feel to the dial itself. And, of course, these can be changed easy enough, too. You just pull those off, and you can change them with other colors, too. And I've got some extra colors here that Sam also... I got from Sam when I was buying the wheel, some white, reds, blues, greens, just like over here, or just a black one if you don't want any color. All right, that's enough for the buttons. Just like the 27D, we have carbon fiber on the front plate and on the rear plate. You don't have to get the carbon fiber on the rear plate, by the way. You can order it without it and just have exposed wires, and a lot of people have done that. Nothing wrong with that. I just wanted mine to be covered up rather when I ordered it. It's just one of those things. Carbon fiber on the shifters, and these shifters are set up the same way as on the 27Ds with actual buttons. Again, a simple design, like I said, but very effective design, and we'll look at that in more detail in a little bit. Again, the USB plug, so that I don't have to stick with one wheel system, and you can see the garlight in the middle here a little better on this wheel because it hangs off. There's a very, very small amount of dish to the MOD30. Not much at all, but just a very small amount. Anything else I want to talk about this MOD30? No, of course, it comes with the yellow tape, or a piece of leather, actually, what it is, stock from the factory, so you don't have to put one on. And this has a Sim Instruments display version 1.4, which has plenty of buttons or button availability on the circuit board, unlike the 27D, which was the 1.3 version. Okay, I guess that's about it. And of course, it's sporting a Q1R release also. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start pulling the pods off and take a look at those. Alright, now we have the electronics pod separated from the steering wheel itself, but I just wanted to take a quick look at one thing on the steering wheel before we get to the pod. Here's that plate that Sam custom made for this wheel. It's a nice carbon fiber piece. It's got his logo on there, Sam Maxwell Customs, and it's almost has a metallic sound to it because it's a very stiff piece of carbon fiber, nice thickness to it. And the reason we put this on here is you can see there's a lot of holes in this wheel. And the reason for that is it was originally mounted to an ECCI 7000 wheel and directly to the hub on that wheel system. And that has a non-standard hole pattern on that system. And John Pribble over at ECCI drilled this out for me so that I could attach it to these ECCI 7000, and he drilled this hole, this one, and this one. And it worked great. I loved it on my 7000, used it a lot, but then I decided once I sold my 7000, I decided I was going to go to a standard hole pattern so that not only I could use a pod like this on the wheel, but also I could attach it to a lot of different wheels out there because that's the universal standard, 70 millimeter. So we went ahead and had Sam drill a hole here, here, and here in that 70 millimeter spacing pattern. But of course that left some extra holes in my wheel, and not that that really is bothered me that much. It is a race car setup anyway, and I've seen race cars with wheels with different holes in them that weren't actually holding bolts or screws at the time, but they were still attached. But Sam said that he wanted to come up with an idea to cover that up, and that's what he came up with, this nice carbon fiber plate. And the reason I told you that little story is because it just gives you another example of what Sam Maxwell can do as far as any of the problems or ideas you have for your wheel when you want to get it custom made by him. He's very flexible, he's very creative, and he's very good at what he does. Got mad skills. All right, enough for the wheel. The pod itself, we already talked about the buttons and things like that, the display. Let's talk about the carbon fiber plate on the front. We've got one on the back. Now, not all of them do that, so I just like to have that plate on the back. It kind of covers up all the wires. Some people don't order the back plate and just have the wires exposed, and that's fine too. It still works great. The paddle shifters, or the paddles for the shifters, are carbon fiber. All this is solid carbon fiber. And I want to show you the shifting mechanism the way he has it on here. So let me get you a look at how that works. You can see there is nothing more than a button back there, just like one of these buttons. And there's also a helper spring on a screw. You can see that. I'll get it turned around for you. And there is a spring inside the button itself that pushes back on this, but it just needs a little bit extra help, so we put that spring in there. A very simple design and a very, very effective design. And it is durable because I've been using this, like I said before. This particular 27D wheel, I've been using it for about a year and banging on these shifters for quite some time, and I've never missed a shift. As far as these paddles are concerned, I've never missed a shift. Now, I may have missed a shift because of me, but not because of a failure of the mechanics on this paddle here. And they still feel great after that much use, so that's great. In the middle of this carbon fiber is the plastic garlite. This double X is the rating on it. And again, it's almost kind of it's really, really brittle and stiff. And Sam said that he had trouble when he first started using this material, machining it out, because it would break on him. It's so brittle. But he finally got that sorted so that he can machine it without any problems, or at least with less problems. And it's not a worry anymore. Now, before I get to the internals here and show you what's going on inside, some people have asked me about the durability of this garlite material as far as the screw holes go, and when you have this bolted to a wheel and bolted to a motor on your wheel system. Once the bolt goes through there, they asked me if they would wear those holes out because it was a plastic center. And I can tell you, I've been using this wheel again for a very long time, and I look down in these holes and there is no kind of wear in the hole at all. I can't see any scratches even. So I'm gonna have to say that is not a factor with this garlite. It's very tough stuff and very stiff stuff. So he's chosen the right material to use for these wheels, because I don't notice any flex in this wheel at all when I'm using it. Now let's take a look inside how he's milled this out and machined it. Now I've pulled the side wires out so that I could get a little more room on this back plate when I lifted it off because of the shifter buttons that are still attached to it. I could take the button off, but why do that when we can just do this? Now, by the way, I highly recommend you do not do this to your wheel if you get one from Sam. But again, I do this because of the videos that I shoot, and I want you guys to see what's going on inside. See if we can get you a good look here. Now you can see, first of all, it's all milled out. This is a solid piece of garlite when he starts, and he mills all that stuff out. And you can see he leaves the round hub pattern in there that the holes are inserted in that'll hold the bolts. And you can see it goes all the way around there. And you can see he's also milled out the bottom pockets there for the switches. You can see the switches down in there. And we also have the dials. These guys are right there, are the dials. And in the USB port, of course, where everything is connected to. And you can also see there's a little circuit board in the middle in there. And what that's for is just to connect everything to. Now this is the original, and I'll show you the display here. This is the original display, or one of the first displays that Sim Instruments was making. And it's a version 3. I think you can see that. I'll get it up there, you can see it. So that's a version 1.3. And the MOD30 has a 1.4 in it. The reason I mention that again is that Sam had to do some electronic trickery to get enough button inputs into this circuit board, because originally that version of board didn't support the amount of buttons that I needed, plus the shifters. So he was able to take care of that. Again, just showing the skill sets that Sam has to be able to go into the circuit boards and pull the signals off to where he can add extra buttons. Speaking of which, attaching to the circuit board, these wires you see here are actually what Sam put in and he actually had to solder these to the solder pads on the circuit board themselves to take them off, or to take the signals off so that he could run them to the buttons and we can use them. So that's very high skill set to be able. It's not easy to solder to the existing pads on a circuit board. I know that because I used to do a little bit of electronic stuff myself and still do, and it's not easy. It's very fiddly to get in there and get a good solder on a pad when you don't have the factory equipment doing it for you. And of course you can see the rest of the hub shape here that holds all the stress on the wheel. And again, it's solid, very thick stuff. I really like it. The Garlite's nice. And I'm sure that it saves some expense. Instead of getting, let's say, a piece of billet aluminum and machining that out and using that for the middle. And then you have to go anodize it black if you want it to be black. So there's a lot more work and expense in aluminum, I would imagine. So that's about it for the pod, except for one thing. I wanted to show you, you get one of these. This is if you, of course, you're going to use this pod in your wheel in a Thrustmaster, the T500RS. And you notice there's no electronic hub inside of this because I'm using the USB output. The reason I didn't get the electronic hub is I didn't want to lock myself into the Thrustmaster system with this particular pod or wheel system. I can mount this to my Bodner. I'll be able to mount this to the AccuForce from Sim Experience when that comes out, or any other direct driver aftermarket wheel. I can even mount this, by the way, to the new Fanatic CSW hub that's come out. You can actually, because it has a 70mm spacing. So we can actually attach this or my wheel to it, or both of them, if you have long enough bolts. And actually I'll be reviewing that, just to mention, once I get one of those hubs in and see how it works. But if you put the electronics through the hub, which is nice at first because you can just take this and stick it on your T500 and there's no cable hanging down off of your wheel from this USB port. But the problem with that is, if you do decide to go to an AccuForce wheel, even a Bodner wheel or something else with the existing wheel system you have, this pod and the steering wheel, then you'll have to get the electronic socket removed, or maybe not removed, you're going to have to disconnect the wire somehow, maybe cut them or whatever, and then add a USB port. And this is a Type B USB port, kind of that's on the back of printers, and rewire it so that you can omit this and attach it to anything that you want to. So I decided to just forego all that, and Sam actually can do that for you. I mean, he can do anything. It costs you some money, but he'll mod it back to a USB port if you want to, if you decide to go that route later. I just don't like locking myself into a system, and you know, I just thought I'd tell you guys that, so you know, if you were thinking about it, I think it's better not to, but you can do whatever you want to. All right, anything else we want to talk about here? I think we covered it all. We're going to go ahead and put our wires back in, get this pod assembled back to our wheel, and then we're going to pull out the pod on the MOD30 wheel that we also have. It has some differences in it, and we'll take a look at those. Won't be too long on that one because the differences aren't that much, but there are a couple. So let's go ahead and get this put back together. Then we'll pull the MOD30 pod off, and then we're going to put that back together and put them both on the Sim Experience Stage 4 rig on the Bodner wheel and give these guys a run. Right, so now we'll take a look at the MOD30 wheel from Momo, and it's the ergonomic wheel. It has the cool little handles on there. You know, I didn't think I'd really be using these, but I use them a heck of a lot when I'm driving. I didn't realize that, so it's a very comfortable wheel to use. It is kind of a non-traditional, funky look to it, but it really does a good job. And we didn't have to do any special drilling on this one, of course, like the MOD27 that you saw before. And these have nice countersunk holes drilled in it at the factory. And these are longer screws that actually came with this wheel when I ordered the wheel itself. And Sam actually put some longer screws in so that, of course, he could secure the pod. And he's using the countersunk heads on these also. So they fit nice and flush, just like the factory ones do. Very nice. Very nice touch. All right. So let's look at the pod here. Now, we've already seen the MOD27's pod, and this was very similar to that other one, except of course we're using the knitters here, and that's about the only difference. Still carbon fiber on the front, and I had the enclosure plate put on the back, and you can see that the shifter mechanisms are the same as on the other pod. Again, simple but effective. I really like the design here. It's just something that's going to wear a long time. I already know that because I've actually used the MOD27D more than I have this one, because this is relatively new. And we'll look inside again. Again, garlite all the way around. It's milled out of a solid piece of garlite, just like the 27D is. We won't spend too much time on this because we've already seen the 27D internals, but there are little differences here. And again, you can see milled out of a solid piece of garlite. The center piece here is all solid, so again that improves the integrity and the stiffness in the wheel, and no wear here either, just like on the MOD27D pod. And you can see that here we have the knitter buttons, which look a little different. A little closer here so you can see them. A little different than the regular buttons that we saw, because those actually have, in fact, because this one's they use it on the shifter, I can show you, this is what they look like on the back. And you can see the knitters have a little bit different configuration on them. And they're taller too as they sit down in the machined out sections. But still, again, fantastic work. We'll go ahead and look at the circuit board up here again. Now this is a different version. If you could see on the video, you could actually see that the other one was a version 1.3, and this is the 1.4 that has more facility for buttons. So all I had to do was put a, if I can show you here, you can see there's just that's just a board where he can make all his connections for all the switches. It's not a special board like on the 27D that actually allows more buttons to be on there. Again, very nice soldering everywhere, very nice wiring, very professional. Again, he's soldering on the pads on the circuit board to pick off the leads for the buttons. Just overall, well done, beautiful work. Can't say enough about the work that Sam does on these. And as you can see, that's why I like doing these videos, so you guys can see for yourself just how nice this stuff is. So we'll go ahead and put this pod back on the MOD30, because we're going to run that on the stage 4 also, along with the 27D, just so you can get a short look and see me running them. I just like to do that for all my videos. It wouldn't be a complete Sim Racing Garage video unless we hook something up to the stage 4 rig with the Bodner wheel or whatever we're using at the time and give it a run. Now again, as we said before, this comes with, Sam always gives you, if of course this wheel is for a T500, which most of these wheels originally when he started making them were for that. And he'll send you the DSD connector, and he'll even wire it up electrically like we talked before. But again, you know I'm not doing that because that makes this wheel system, or this pod, it'll make it be locked into the Thrustmaster system without having to do some more soldering and removing wires out of this hub to get it to fit or go on other wheel systems. And using the USB plug down here as an external with the coiled wire, again, keeps this wheel future proof, because somewhere down the road you might be getting a different wheel and you don't want to be tied to the Thrustmaster and have to do a bunch of wiring to get it redone. Even though Sam will do that, and it's not a problem for him, but then again it'll cost you money too. So it's not going to cost me money when I switch this wheel from system to system. Right, so we're going to go ahead and put it back on there, get it on the rig, give it a run along with the 27D. Okay, we're in the C6R Corvette in iRacing. I'm just going to run this one wheel. We'll do it with the MOD30 here. We'll go to Mid-Ohio and just run the wheel around the track a little bit here so you guys can see what's going on. And of course, this is the wheel with the Sim Instruments display and the knitter buttons. And you'll see a lot of people, first thing they're going to notice is the coiled USB cord that's coming out of the back of the wheel. And I know some guys don't like cords and they think they're ugly and they get in their way. And I get that. But like I said before in the video, when you start running your electronics through the hub, which is a great look, and it keeps things out of your way, then you kind of get tied down to one steering system. With this wheel with the USB plug on it, I can go to any wheel system I want to and still use this great steering wheel. So I don't get stuck with something that I can't use on another system and have to buy another wheel because I got into another system. Anyway, you know, that's just the way I look at it. And everybody has their own opinion about that, but I really don't mind a USB cord. And if you have it on a Thrustmaster, a CSW, or some car, or rather wheel system that does the initial startup and spins, then you just have to unplug it, that's all. Sure, it's a little bit of a hassle, but in the long run, it's more than worth it for me because of the benefits I get out of it. Okay, enough talk about USB cords. This is a great feeling wheel. When it's in your hand, like most real racing wheels, it's light, it feels right. In this particular MOD30, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it or not. It's the ergonomic version of a Momo racing wheel. And you can see that I keep my thumbs on the ergonomic knobs up there, and it's really comfortable. I didn't think it was going to be that comfortable, but it really is. I always put them up there now instead of wrapping around the rim like I would if those little bumps weren't there. Once you have a racing wheel in your hands, you'll never want to go back to some commercial grade wheel. It just feels that good. I really enjoy using the Momos, and if it was a Sparco, same thing. I just happened to go with Momos because they were convenient at the time. And of course there's other wheels out there too, not just Momo and Sparco. So anything really that's designed to be a real racing wheel is great. And we're going to be able to use these wheels even on the CSWs now because of that new hub they came out with, which we'll be reviewing at a later date. All right, well, I guess that's about it. You guys can see the wheel, me turning it. There's really not a whole lot to it. And we'll just go ahead and get to the closing thoughts on what I think about Sam Maxwell's Momo custom wheels, or just his custom wheels in general. I started using aftermarket racing wheels about 2 years ago. I started out with this MOD27D that was mounted to an ECCI 7000 wheel system. But there was always something missing that as far as what I wanted for button functions and things like that. Now I know there were several sim racers out there that had added small plates to wheels that could accommodate some buttons, but the add-on button plates that Sam had started making at the time looked like the best solution for me. So I kept an eye on his work as it progressed until I was ready to buy one for myself. Sam is a great person to work with, and he's willing to listen to any idea that you might have for a particular wheel, be it design or implementation. He was able to integrate my existing 27D Momo wheel that had already been drilled to a non-standard bolt pattern, just like we saw in the video, and the sim instrument display, which was one of the first actually, into a great looking package here. I liked it so much I decided to buy another one from him, and that's how I got the Momo MOD30. I really can't say enough about the craftsmanship that goes into these wheels, and you can tell that Sam enjoys building these wheels by the care and meticulous attention to detail that goes into every one of these wheels. And those lucky few out there that have these wheels know exactly what I'm talking about. I can think of, as far as cons, only one, and that's the price. It is a custom wheel though, and a wheel built up like this 27D is about $977, and one built up like the MOD30 runs about $1,032 or $1,032. But when you have one of these wheels in your hands, you know why it costs that much. It's easy to see. It's just a great sensation when you have a real racing wheel in your hands and you're driving a car. I think it'd be great if everybody could get a chance to try that, and if you ever do, I suggest that you give it a try. It just adds a level of immersion and it just feels super. If you're in the market for a custom wheel for your rig, then I highly recommend you drop Sam a line and see what he can come up with you. Well, that brings us to the end of this review, but we got more reviews in the near future on some great sim racing gear, so subscribe to our channel or just check back frequently to see what's next. I'm Barry Rowland, and thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel.